I'm a projector. Product formerly known as deliveries has been in the works for some time. We announced it at ChefConf last year and then went into early access last spring and GA in November. I know some of you are using delivery today, some of you are not. And now it is a part of Chef Automate. So what we're going to focus on here is that workflow component of Automate and answer any questions that you have about the pipeline, about continuous delivery in general. We can talk about a couple of new features that we've added, including the new installation process and SAML authentication, and sort of show you what that looks like. And really it's just an opportunity for you to meet myself. I'm Megan. Hi, sorry, I didn't do that part. I'm the product manager for formerly delivery and now Automate Workflow. Vicki Everett is UX designer who has been helping us make it look a lot snazzier. This is one, Oliver Farini, you may have seen him on main stage yesterday. Oliver is one of the engineering managers who's been working on delivery since the very beginning. Also with us, I'm going to invite Chip to come up. Charles Johnson is on the product team as well. And Chip currently has got work in flight on a local workflow using the DK suite, kit, whatever thing.
Yeah.
To make the local workflow experience a smoother transition to the Automate workflow experience, and he can share some of that work with you as well. Sound good? Okay.
Real quick, can we raise hands who's used delivery? Okay. And then for everybody else, who here has like any idea how delivery works from like a developer's perspective? Okay, cool. Just making sure.
Cool.
We can show stuff.
So we'll do a little bit of just basic orientation then. So Chef, over the 8 years that Chef has been in existence, we've helped many customers build continuous integration, continuous delivery pipelines, many of them Jenkins-based, but not exclusively. And over the years of working with customers, we started to see a pattern emerge, a pipeline shape that was stable and provided a repeatable shared workflow that really promotes collaboration, and this is where the stages of workflow were born. So it's a 6-stage pipeline. 2 of these boxes here represent human gates in the pipeline. That was weird. I touched the screen. So essentially, verifies before the merge. You're going to run some, each of these have phases associated with them, and via Build Cookbook, which is a special kind of cookbook, you can describe what happens in those phases. Verify is going to happen before the merge. You're going to go through a code review process and then have an approval. That then is going to merge the change, create an artifact, deploy that artifact to acceptance where more automated tests are executed. And within Chef, this is where Vicki and I come in and we look at the work that the development teams have produced, review that work, get a demo, whatever, and then we hit the deliver button and it will go out to the remainder of the pipeline, which is a shared pipeline. So up until acceptance, the darker boxes here you have are essentially project-based pipeline, but here is where they all come together. So if anybody was learning about dependency management yesterday, Union is where the magic happens, where your runtime dependencies are expressed and tested together. Is that okay?
That's great.
Okay, cool. Any questions about sort of the stages of the pipeline?
Actually, yeah. I'm one of the people who has very little experience here. Coming from a development background, I've had and overheard a couple questions about the code being merged into master after the first stage, after the verify stage, before what do they call it? Function?
Yeah.
Functional.
Right.
Before the functional phase.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about the philosophy there? Like, why merge the code when only unit tests have been run?
So the concept there is that your unit test suite should be good enough that it gives you at least enough information to build an artifact. and that you don't ship code to customers, you ship artifacts to customers. And so what we want to do is get you from your first code review experience to acceptance as quick as possible. So as an example, for a cookbook, you might have a publish in your build stage that pushes to GitHub, but that's just for collaboration for acceptance. It's not how your customers are supposed to consume it. They're supposed to consume it from supermarket, as an example. And so we want to be able to test if the artifact that gets created from master in acceptance. And then when you click deliver, you'll ship that to supermarket and it's now consumable.
It just sounds like the key is thinking in terms of artifact versus source code.
Right.
I think it also
Right.
encourages your developers to write good unit tests.
Yeah, that's always good.
But you can't, I mean, people can have different philosophies on that, right? And the workflow works for both. What happens when you on the other side of the fence and you really rely more on functional and acceptance tests to prove correctness in your system, your acceptance runs take longer. And so when you do get the feedback that something's broken, you all of a sudden have this pain of, well, I want to fix it, but it's going to take a lot longer than I'd like. And that creates some level of pressure to move anything that can be unit tested into unit and keep that acceptance layer as thin as possible. Which is, in many respects, in line as like also in the BDD Cucumber initiative of like, beware your tests for you will run them often. So make them valuable. Sorry, talking about.
So I thought that as part of approval, when you do code review, you're also reviewing the tests, unit tests to make sure it has appropriate scope, right?
100% correct. If anyone doesn't hear a question, speak up and we'll repeat it.
Is it possible actually to rerun it just and try to skip certain processes which is already being set up? How do you do that?
Skip certain processes that have already been successful. So you could in your, so the config.json that describes the project, you
Yep.
can comment out you can skip some of the phases underneath the stages. But the pipeline is like, I mean, it's in one end, out the other. So it's not, you wouldn't rerun any part of the pipeline for a change unless there was a failure, like a transient failure or something.
So you run at the stage level. You can rerun from the stage from that where exactly.
The only places where your stages stop are where you have the human gates. So, so you have a pause here where you're waiting for a human to click the approve button, and then build goes and then acceptance goes. Then you have another pause while you're waiting for a human to press the deliver button, and then you go whoosh.
And if it
There's
fails,
no pausing the pipeline.
if it
Except for
fails in between any of those automatic flow, what happens? Do you get to actually go back and rerun from the beginning, or is it from?
yeah, so you essentially have two options. A rerun, like I don't know, the network went out for a second or something, you can hit the rerun button, and if it succeeds, great, you just pick up where you left off and keep going. If you have a failure that's because a test is failing, then the opportunity to correct that is to push a new change. That will supersede the change that you just pushed that failed, and the now new change will come in on top of that and correct the problem.
So there are two layers to that. The unit test fails, right? You're pre-merge. So you just push another pass in, right? Super easy. A functional test or a smoke test fails, then you go down the path that makes it with a new change in a new line.
The difference there between what you were saying would be clicking the rerun button versus running delivery review again from the CLI.
That's exactly
And that
right.
would start from the beginning versus rerun button.
That's correct.
Yeah, and rerun again, I mean, if your change is failing because of a functional test, that's not a rerun opportunity.
Yeah, you can definitely have to start over. Okay.
This covers both infrastructure, but we'll see that.
Yes.
Question is, does it cover infrastructure and apps? Yes. Same workflow.
So inside applications, we have some support to be able to handle versions for you. So you can, in your cookbook code for your build cookbook, which is the build cookbook is the construct that operates your builders for you. In the same way, the jobs in a Jenkins config operate your build. The build cookbook holds that same kind of content. There you can do specific, application-specific deploy and management code that you might need.
So your result is in the cookbook, it could be an application.
Right, exactly. You can even deliver the cookbooks that operate your application.
So, question. So the code is merged and the acceptance didn't pass. The one is have to restart it, right? But it's already merged. How do you handle that code? Right? Some of the code can be complex, right? It could include backend code, UI code. Is there a methodology on how to? Do you ask the developers to work on a branch before they merge it into the branch, and then so you can pull it out, so they can start again? How does that work?
Are you talking about that you have services that you want to deploy together, like, maybe you have a database service and an API service and a web service and that sort of thing. So those, I think, we would say that those each represent their own project. But then you can establish dependency relationships via dependency management and workflow to essentially enable the deployment of all of those things together. Am I answering your question or am I answering your question?
No, it's not about dependency. I understand that.
Okay.
So the code is reviewed. It was approved. Now the code, which is different pieces of code, are merged into the main branch. I'll just call it main for that. Which contains other code from other developers that are going to go into acceptance. And this particular story happened to not pass the acceptance. So how do you move that out so the rest can flow in? How do you move that code out? Is there a function?
You could either fix the problem or push a revert.
Yeah, it's just awful. How can I prove?
So you just want to get rid of it. So all of the changes in delivery roll forward. So while you can push a revert commit, you need to make sure your version numbers roll forward. Does that make sense? So if you have a cookbook as an example and somebody committed sudo rm-/rf and it was not a good thing for anybody. And your builder is now posed. You're like, okay, cool, we don't want that. Let's go ahead and git revert, right, on a feature branch of that commit. And then just make sure you go into the metadata, because that'll get reverted too, right? And bump that twice. And then commit, delivery, review. And that'll get rid of that commit for you.
So this is working behind the scenes with Git.
Yes.
And it's doing merges with Git, or you have to do that?
So the merging happens automatically. It's a no fast forward merge. That helps. It is very possible if your teams do not rebase their feature branches to get an exciting Git tree. Just be aware that there is some. We've debated a bunch of convenience features that should delivery apply, just rebase your branch for you. And there's religious arguments that then ensue. So we haven't made a choice yet, but that's definitely a thing. So when you run verify, the first thing that it does is it'll clone the repository, it'll grab your branch, and it'll do an artificial merge, like a candidate merge, of what it would look like if it hit master. And then we run the test against that line of code. So when we run the test, we're not running them on your feature branch, because that doesn't actually matter. If your feature branch is out of date, with master, we want to make sure that we run the right set of tests. Likewise, when you get to build, we do that again, because master may have moved. Build is locked. You can't have more than one build stage run in a pipeline at a time. So what we do, we create a funnel there, we create a queue, and that prevents you from having to merge changes, try to land on top of each other, and then confuse the system.
When you're talking about building and testing, you're not only talking about building and testing cookbooks, but you're also
this instance of delivery, or excuse me, workflow, I'm great at remembering names. This is actually the project that is audited. And in it, let's look at just our change, right? That's actual application line code, right? Not a lot of it, right? It's tiny change. One might argue it doesn't have any tests. So we might say no. Or we could go to the review and we could say, actually, somebody already asked the question. Stephen Ronaldes, way to go. Christoph was here earlier, but I can't. It's his team. So, yeah. It is an all change. Right, did you see that, Tom? So does that explain the kind of underlying Git mechanics for how it works at kind of a developer level? The idea there is we want you to know that it's safe, that when you actually run a build or when you merge code, that it's a tiny bit more complicated than what you might do otherwise, and that it tries to give you a guarantee of safety.
So is the developer working inside this, or is it outside the
I was going to show you a little bit of a dev dance. Who wants to see some dev dance? So here I am. I'm going to do git touch dash dash all. The reason I would do dash dash al is because I might be pushing to GitHub as well as delivery. That's very common, right? So I might share with other developers in the community through GitHub to look at something before I might push it through a more private delivery process, actually the workflow process. So here I am. Sentinel-driven error is the last commit, and it is 1 E5201. I'm going to get rid of parse master, and it should be the same thing, right? So I'm off master, right? Everybody's happy. I'm going to touch a file. I'm going to out your file. I'm going to add bar. I'm going to commit. Where did I lose it? Oh, right. Can't use double quotes because it just tried to execute git. Can't use single quotes. Yeah, and then I would delivery review. No, I have not pushed anything. Right? I don't have to push. Delivery Cloud will push for me. And it will immediately open up. You can say no open if you've got automation around this. So by default, it will open up a change for you and then open the change in your browser. And I'm on all sorts of Wi-Fi. So here you can see I've skipped all the phases. Right? So let's take a quick look at that. Maybe that was wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have skipped phases, right? So, and no editor overlays. Here you'll see this block of skip phases. If I say I really want unit to run, right? Like there's a unit test for this. That's really important to me. I go and look at it, and I say diff, that looks right. Delivery review again. Again, no pushes, no more git commands than you would otherwise need to run. Right? The idea is to give you a minimalist, easy dev dance that doesn't cause you to fill out hoops. So now, when this change loads, you'll notice that unit's now running, right? And it's no longer being skipped. You'll also notice that if you look at the patch set, it shows that I have 2. So if I go to review, you can see that there are 2 patch sets. And the first one I just had bar, which is a touched file. And the second one I had the config.json and bar. Now, everyone that immediately says, oh my god, I love GitHub, I don't want to use this for reviews. You don't have to. Okay? In the future you may want to, because there's interesting things that we can do when we talk about diffs between patch sets, as opposed to diffs between commits, which is GitHub's approach. in disk between patch sets, a rebase will actually show you the rebase impact between patch set 1 and patch set 2. And that's actually incredibly powerful. So there are features yet to come that might make this more attractive, might not, but there's lots of options. It integrates with Bitbucket. Should I stop talking and let you talk about?
Well, I was going to ask Shiv if you wanted to talk a little bit about the developer workflow, the local stuff. Do you want to share what you guys are doing in the Unified Workflow project?
Yeah, sure. So we've got some things that are going to land next week. I should back up. So how many of you are people who already use the ChefDK? All right, so that is awesome, and I am not making features for you. So one of the things that we have gotten over and over again, right, is that there is a huge cognitive load when you're learning Chef. And that's true, like it's inarguable, right? So for a lot of people, what we come back with at the end of a training class is it's, especially as we move into like, you know, a lot more enterprise customers, is that a lot of times it's people's first exposure to Git. It's their first exposure to Chef as a language. It's their first exposure to like anything that does magic is Test Kitchen. Test Kitchen does a lot of magic, right? So people are just like, whoa, crap, really? So you're learning a language, you're learning a workflow, and when people show up and say, how do I chef? For a long time our answer was like, well, how do you want to chef, man? Like what are you trying to do? Let's talk about your problem. And that resulted in a lot of flipped tables because when you hand someone a blank piece of paper, like people, there's no guide rails, right? So what we're working on right now, first is that there's a lot of different tools, right? Like I have to know that to run unit testing in ChefSpec, I run chef exec rspec, right? I have to know that mental map, and then I have to know that that correlates to a unit test. So for instance, how many people know that we just replaced RuboCop with a new thing called CookStyle? All right, that's actually more people than I thought, right? Because, and there's significant RuboCop related pain. There's a good reason we did that. But for instance, I have to know that if I'm doing my lint test, then I need to run RuboCop, except now I need to run CookStyle, right? We have to think about that and have that cognitive map and so on. So and there were a lot of different workflow related tools, and it all kind of was just a big pain in the ass for a lot of people. So what we did, one is that for reasons of making delivery better, we took the ChefDK and added the delivery CLI command to it, as well as the push jobs client, because that gave the developer workstation and the build node, which actually does your builds, that put them at parity. Like we knew that there was going to be the same stuff in all of those boxes, no matter what, and also made build nodes easier to make. But mostly it's about parity. And then the other thing that unlocks then, well, we have a workflow-oriented tool called delivery.
No.
What?
It's called workflow.
Well, no, a workflow-oriented command line tool called
yeah,
delivery.
That's true.
That you invoke, right? It's true. To use a workflow called delivery that talks to a server product called workflow.
Welcome to Chef.
Yeah. All right. Like it's called ops code workflow. No, I'm kidding. So what we did was we took that set of stages and we said, what if there is a stage that lives to the left of all that that's on my workstation? And then if we had tools, commands that were oriented around the thing that you're going to invoke. And it wound up being very simple. It's just some wrappers. But now instead of running RuboCop, you can say delivery local unit, and it's going to run your unit test. And it doesn't say I'm showing out the RuboCop to go do a thing. You just get your unit test because you don't really want to care about RuboCop. Like what you want to care about is my code unit testing, and so on. So like we wrap kitchen, we wrap RuboCop, which through CookStyle, and Food Critic and so on, in kind of a prescriptive way for developing chef cookbooks. And then Chef Generate, since workflow is going out and everybody gets workflow now, Chef Generate's going to create your cookbooks with .delivery folders in them, like they're already going to come scaffolded for all of this. And the whole idea is just to make it a whole lot simpler. So like you write all your code, you've been using delivery commands to do it the whole time. The last thing you run is delivery review, right? And it's just the same thing all the way through. And all those wrapping commands then can be reconfigured on a per project basis. So out the gate, since this is the first prototype, it's all oriented around cookbook development. I'm going to be working on, say, the delivery project, like my unit command and my linting commands are going to be completely different. And those can be described. So what those wrappers do is defined in a per project way inside the repo. So that all hits Wednesday, a week from today. That'll all land. It's in current right now. Yeah.
Question, so, so doing the delivery unit test?
Yeah.
What's the?
It'd be delivery space, local space unit, and I'm going to almost immediately alias that to DLU, right? But
So how does it differ than running like a local verified?
so the local verify job, what it does is it goes out, and so if you say delivery, there's a command in there right now that says delivery job dash dash local, quote, name of the stages I want to run, or phases I want to run, which then invokes the build cookbook and runs it locally, which then invokes a wrapped command, and invokes that wrapped command and then services everything all the way back out. Which is, I think, actually answers your question. But what we do is we invoke the, essentially delivery apply is just invoking back to the shell of your system and running the thing directly, and then surfacing standard bear, standard out, your return code back up. So, like, injection of opinion that my co-presenters may disagree with, I think that chef cookbooks are awesome, but I think they're kind of a lousy job execution engine, especially whenever it's like local. And just the overhead of wrapping through a chef client run, a local command wrap, and then back out whenever I'm sitting there waiting on it at my keyboard, was not the awesomest feeling. Anything? Yeah.
Couple things. The command that he was just talking about that runs through the build cookbook locally, can it use it will use whatever the project specified build cookbook is, correct?
Correct.
Okay, because some things aren't going to use a standard delivery. The other part of that, the commands you're talking about are just wrapped commands. They're not going to run through any custom things that are set up through.
Yeah, you can customize them. They're stored in a TOML file.
Okay.
And again, since this is kind of a newish thing, like we'll see what commands people want to wrap and whether the TOML file is the right place to put it. This is the joy of ChefPK being at 0 dot, right? I don't have to, I can break things and change them around a little bit.
The generate command, is that going to allow me to specify custom build cookbooks when I do the generate?
Yeah, so chef generate now has chef generate build cookbook as a subcommand, and then the chef generate cookbook invokes chef generate build cookbook. So whatever your custom build cookbook is, I know, right? How many times can I say cookbook? So whatever your build cookbook is, if you have a custom build cookbook specified in your generator, then it will spit that one out. All right, one more, and then I think we're past back.
You said the test kitchen gets wrapped, so you, would it be in the dock delivery, or are you still doing the dock kitchen YAML?
It's still in a kitchen YAML.
No,
I haven't done the under the hood part of making those things start hugging yet. But like that would be a cool ass integration, right?
Yeah.
Like that would be
So, like,
really
you can
cool.
have, I mean, I don't see it here, but can you have unit lit and then integration where it like spins it up EC2, does it all, and then if it goes through the whole test without, and goes through your service spec, then awesome, then goes.
Yeah, so what you can do, we're using inspec in the generators now, but essentially like, there's nothing to stop you from using inspec in your acceptance tests if you're sending out a cookbook and having it happen out of infrastructure.
Okay.
Like, that would be awesome.
We have that.
Taking that a step further, you can, I don't know if you said this, but you can run kitchen and unit if you want.
It'd be a heavy unit test, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but the idea is that the tool doesn't try to stop you from doing that, and so like whatever your values are, like you can apply them and be happy with the outcome. There might be side effects in terms of how fast your pipelines run, whatever, right? But again, that aligns with how you want to do work. So
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, what other questions about workflow generally? Anybody want to look at the sample stuff? What's of interest?
Are there any patterns for team-wide linting and unit testing rules to be applied across multiple build cookbooks?
that's a great question.
are there any patterns to do that, or do you just tell everyone to use the right ones and it'll fail if you aren't using the right ones?
What we do is we actually use a custom build cookbook. So if we had something like we wanted to say ignore this one food critical rule, no matter what the cookbook is, then we would probably put it in that build cookbook in the lint stage. We would just take a custom lint stage rather than the delivered lint stage. So it can be done, if you can do it in the build cookbook, you can do it. And just, if you have several build cookbooks for different things that you want to include the appropriate recipe out of whatever your work shelf specifies for the dependencies. We have one that's a library cookbook, we've got one that's a provisioning cookbook, we've got different parts that come into our custom build cookbook.
Thanks.
Maybe one of the takeaways there is the build cookbook is a cookbook, because as robust as you need it to be.
So I put a lot of that in my rate file, just do tasks for the food critical, test kitchen, whatever, and you can set the next kitchen, whatever, over there. And you can have that in the cookbook, then you can call that with CR.
The build cookbook is specifically for what?
The build cookbook is specific. I can also talk about roadmap, if you guys are interested in what we're going to be doing next. Okay. So we're kicking off a bunch of work for workflow. Last quarter we were preparing for Automate, and so we focused on making better installation process, more transparent installation process. We no longer are recommending the use of delivery cluster cookbook. Out on Chef Docs, you'll find the new installation process. We did that in Q2, and we did the sample work in Q2, and then we did some UX work as well. What that meant is that, in terms of advancing the workflow, we were on the edges of that, right? Installing, authenticating, navigation, and appearance, and we weren't focusing as much on the core capabilities of the workflow. So I'm really excited for Q3. We're going to be doing a bunch of stuff. So Charles is going to be leading a project to take push jobs out of workflow. We'll be developing a new job dispatch system specifically for Automate, and then we're going to look at that and spend some time with it, get it out into the world, and see how it behaves, and see if there's an opportunity to go wider with that as a possible alternative to push jobs just generally. But the goal for Q3 is really just to get a new job dispatch in place for workflow. We are going to do some work on the GitHub integration that's existing in Fiddly. JP and I had a nice talk about that today. So we're going to make that a little simpler, make it possible to configure it through the GUI, give you a little bit more interoperability between GitHub and workflow. We are going to get started on our governance theme for workflow. And the plan there is, first we're going to create a very basic team model whereby you could say these users are on team A and these other users over here are on team B. Not doing anything very fancy there, just sort of lists of users with names on them. And then based on those teams, we're going to allow you, or pipeline administrator, to set business rules around the human gates in the pipeline. So for any project, you can say, hey, I don't want any humans in this pipeline at all. I want it to be 100% automate. It's just a whoosh. I know, like, this is going to some safe place or whatever. That'll be an option. We'll have the option to have multi-stage approvals. And when I say approvals, I mean both the approved and the delivered gate. So you could say, I require 2 developers, and they cannot be the person who created the change before something's approved and merged. When you get to deliver, you might have fancier rules like, I need somebody from my change board, and I need somebody from my security team, and I need the product person. All of those people need to push the button to deliver this change. So I'm really excited about that. I think that's going to help with adoption and getting the workflow into organizations that have compliance and regulatory concerns. And I'm really excited to work with you on it. So if anybody's interested in being a design partner with us on that project especially, please get in touch. How does workflow work with compliance? So there is we don't have it in SHD. Oh, I think it's got it in here. Yeah, let's see it.
Are you just changing your push jobs model to work with HA? Or should I serve HA?
I get that. All right, that's me again, 'cause I just did HA. And I just came from an HA session and answered that. So right now, the amount of work to do that is non-trivial. The way that push job server works is that there can be only one. Like Highlander joke. But there is and in the old HA it ran on your backend node, which was fine because you only had one active backend. So that's why that's the technical reason why it doesn't work with the new HA. So right now, the first step to getting that worked out is to get the new push job server stuff released, and there are people working on that literally while we speak. I just checked on them on my phone. Once that's out, then the next thing is essentially figuring out the very hard problem of the job state server on a set of distributed stateless front ends. And do I put a job state server on the back end and then try an HA proxy 10,000 0 queues through to that? I don't know. We're gonna have. What I'm saying is a non-trivial amount of work to make that happen. We'd like to make it happen. It ain't gonna be real soon. It's gonna take a little bit.
So, but just for reference and just for throwing it out there, say if I did want to move to HA now, but of course I'm still using delivery, so of course I still need push jobs.
Yeah.
Is it still possible, even though this push jobs itself will be HA, is it still okay for me to load push jobs somewhere within there and then point it to?
It really isn't gonna work out.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's one of the things that I'd really like to get solved because it's definitely sticky. Right? I figured it was better to get HA out and have this problem than to have the problem of everybody still in the old school HA.
I guess, but
Like-
then that becomes a hurry up and wait.
Yeah,
Which is kind of not great either.
Yeah, there wasn't an awesome answer for that.
You could have, a small chef server that just is for delivery, right? That just does that work for you.
Yeah.
That's silly, but. Okay, someone asked a question about how does compliance work, so Oliver's gonna walk us through that.
In the demo that I gave yesterday, there was I showed this off. What happens here is in the functional recipe, and I'll show you the actual version. In the functional recipe, we kick off inspect, and we write it to literally a chef exact, model exact, because why not, right? There's a specific version of inspect that we need, that's just because we changed that in landed, which is why there's a bundle and so on. Otherwise, you could just use the one that's inside check EK and not worry at it. But you pass it the profile name that you want executed. This profile that I showed off yesterday, we didn't actually write. It came from CIS, and I monkeyed with the system that it ran on to make it fit. And what happens is we capture that to this JSON file, and it will automatically send that as a report back to workflow. And so then it shows up. And you can actually, you can switch to the actual output of the run, and you can see what happened. It's pretty easy. This is a pretty newish feature, and we're going to refine it some more as we do more work in compliance.
Probably a one-to-many, we can put it to a whole bunch of different organizations.
So there's an organization in the chef server that Automate uses for its own management. And it's there that it manages things like your environments around the build nodes and product ship. When you're writing your build cookbook, you can target it to as many chef servers or organizations as you would like. And that you have all the flexibility you like.
We're about out of time, so Tony, what's your question? And then anybody wants to hang back and chat with you.
Sure. So deploying things through workflow that are not cookbooks, such as like my Rails app using
So, one of the things we wanted to demo and we had to cut, because we didn't have time, was there's a habitat build cookbook that already exists. And you can use it to do exactly the thing we're talking about. You saw the habitat demo. There was even more on that. We didn't get to do it because we ran out of time. So,
Maybe later we can,
yeah.
sure.
I mean, it is workflow stream to like manage change throughout your whole,
Absolutely.
so, not.
All right, we're gonna wrap, but thank you very, very much